know a lot of people debate the rules of how long you're allowed to say Happy New Year. But I say there are no rules, Tim.
On Curb Your Enthusiasm, it's January 7th.
Well, here on Swing Thoughts, Curb Your Golf Enthusiasm, I say, in fact, I had this discussion on my other show today about if you haven't seen somebody and it's still January, then it's kind of okay. But should that bleed into February, apparently things happen. I don't know. Something.
No, I think January 31st, that's the statute of limitations.
Well, I want to say to you, Happy New Year.
Thank you. And back to you and to all our STDs, happy 26.
Yeah,
hope it's
great.
Wonderful, and any horrible stuff that happens, you get over it.
I was going to say, and you know what? It's been so quiet this January. It's almost like there's nothing going on. It's been very quiet.
Nothing. The world is just so
The world is
serene,
just sanguine.
That's right. Yep.
Hey, did you hear after our big snowstorm, we had a earthquake here in the GTA last night?
Whoa.
Yes.
They didn't call the army in for that?
No. But I found out, too, that there's an organization called Earthquakes Canada. I had no idea. I'm like, they got all excited. They had their hotline open, and apparently the epicenter of this small earthquake was centered over Aurora, which is a city about an hour, I guess, 45 minutes north of the city of Toronto. Anyway, welcome to Swing Thoughts, everybody. GSL here for 2026, along with Coach Tim. Very excited to kick off this first show of the new year. And we're going to get to all the golfy stuff. But first, I want to introduce our very first guest of our very first show of 2026. We thought it would only be appropriate, because I talk about him so much on Humble and Fred, that we would have the founder of Par for Success at parforsuccess.com. It's Chris Finn. Christopher, how are you, sir?
I'm doing amazing, guys. It's the new year. It's cold. Not a lot of golf going on, so we're busy.
Where are you situated, sir? Where do you live where it's cold?
So we're in Raleigh, which I grew up in the Northeast in the States, and now that I'm in Raleigh, if you get an inch of snow down here, it's like the apocalypse.
Oh yeah. No, I know.
Traffic chaos.
I was going to say Happy New Year. I grew up in the Midwest of Canada. I moved to Vancouver when I was in my early 20s, and they get no snow, and it's the same thing. It snowed for they got a couple centimeters of snow, and they shut the city down. They were like, we don't know what to do.
Yeah, my kids had no school for 3 days.
Come on.
For maybe an inch and a half because of the quote-unquote threat of black ice, because it will be below freezing in the morning.
Oh, yeah. Well, they did. We had the second most snow I've ever seen in the city here on the weekend. Yeah. I don't even know what it is in inch. We had 60 centimeters of snow in downtown Toronto, which is a lot. It is a lot. The reason I thought it would be appropriate to have you on for our first show, and I mentioned before we started recording, I've talked to some guys that are doing the program, and a lot of the guys that I golf against and guys that are into golf are right now into golf fitness. The off season is the best time for that kind of thing. And so maybe you can take us through the genesis of Par for Success, and why in general an ongoing program is great for golfers.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely, you hit a nail on the head, a common time for guys to start to think about kind of fitness. And, it's cold, the courses are closed. What's something else I can do to help my golf game? I think we're all golf nuts, so we always want to be doing something around there. So, I think when it comes to taking care of your body from a fitness perspective, what we've seen over the last 15 plus years and, the 15,000 or whatever golfers that we've helped, this is a very common entry point. I think the probably the biggest mistake a lot of guys will make, a lot of golfers will make, is that they think that once it gets warm and they start playing that, okay, I did my fitness for the year, I'm good. And it can be tempting, because a lot of guys, when they start, they'll see, the next 10, 12 weeks, you'll see on average, 10 yards picked up, they're feeling better, they're moving better. But then, golf all of a sudden starts coming up, and they'd rather play than do some mobility or do some strength. And unfortunately, what we'll see is if there is that kind of in-season hiatus, as it were, a lot of guys lose all the gains that they gained during the off season. And then, come fall, they end up kind of starting over. If they're lucky, a lot of times they're a little further behind. So I think there's the genesis of where fitness has come. I think in the beginning, 15 years ago, it was like, all right, something to do in the winter. What we're definitely seeing over the last decade plus is it's really important to keep working throughout the year. And I mean, you'll do less time, but you will definitely still be doing something in season to keep the body going and keep it healthy.
I kind of want to start there when you talked about doing something in season. I started the program, I think it was the third week of September, and I just passed 110. I might even be up to 115 workouts. That's doing something 6 days a week. And before people, get turned off by that, when I first got the program, I thought it was a little bit. I didn't know if I could do it, but the consistency of it. I want to talk a little bit about the difference between mobility and strength. Mm-hmm. And so at first, I was doing I was doing the program, and it was kind of. I didn't really understand it. I didn't get that mobility is a big issue, because it was a big issue for me. So I want to begin there by when you guys first get on board a client, there's a measuring protocol that you run a client through, and then you check in every few weeks as to how that protocol is improving. So maybe talk about what baseline is and then how it improves.
Yeah, I mean, I think the adage of that which is measured gets better. They've done studies even like not even implementing any habit changes or diet changes for weight loss, and simply having one group just weigh themselves every morning, like they lose weight. Like, and that's literally all they did was just measure themselves. So it's pretty well documented through the research, and we've seen it, on our side too, is where we always start is measuring and getting a baseline of where everybody's at. And some people, I think there's kind of two main buckets, maybe three, but the two main ones are mobility. And then if you want to put strength and power kind of together, technically they're different. Strength is how strong you are. Power is how fast can you move that strength, right? So we've all seen the big muscly guy who hits the ball like 150 yards because he doesn't move it fast, right? So I think mobility is definitely the entry point for everybody, because it doesn't matter how strong you are. And I think this is probably a little more of what you experienced, Howard. You could be in pretty good shape physically, pretty strong, but if you don't have, there's four main rotational centers, your hips. So it's called internal rotation. So if you think of your golf swing, your ability to rotate into your backswing, that's internal rotation on your trail hip. And think of rotating through the golf ball through impact, that's internal rotation on your lead hip. I think a lot of times we think of hip mobility, we think cross my ankle on my knee, we think pigeon stretch or figure four stretches, right? It's actually the opposite that we need for golf. Your shoulders, your ability to rotate back like you're throwing like a football, for example, and kind of cocking your arm back. Then you have your thoracic spine, which is, we call it shoulder turn a lot of times in golf. Those are the big three. And then, so I think if you have limitations there, I always joke that that's like the bread on a sandwich. And you could have the nicest piece of like New York strip or steak, like a beautiful steak sandwich, but if that bread's all moldy, you're not gonna eat it, right? So you could be.
That's right.
So that's the analogy I always use for like a guy like like yourself, who's like super strong, like very fit, but we had some mold on the bread, and so what we have to do is remove that mold by getting more mobile, and then all of a sudden we can enjoy the fruits of what's inside. And I think that's, I'll use the other analogy as like a caged gorilla. Right? The gorilla in a cage isn't going to do much. If you let it out of the cage, better watch out. And I think that's what we're trying to do, particularly for golf. There's a lot of men over 50. We see that a lot, where the mobility is just kind of the big constraint. So to go back to your initial question, measuring that's important, because most guys like you are like, what does it matter?
So wait a second. So I was less of a gorilla in a cage and more like a monkey in a fridge box or something. Fridge.
Well, actually, I now have a choice of two new nicknames: either gorilla or moldy. I think I'm going with moldy.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I definitely have a bit of mold on me. But go ahead, Tim.
I was going to say, Chris, even guys who do exercises, whether they go for long walks, there's always an element of resistance to this, and a lot of it. So Howard said 106 workouts. And I think one of the first questions that come up, well, how much time does that take? So Chris, well, Howard, maybe how much time are you devoting to this briefly?
That and that's what I was going to say. It's and for the record again, it's 115 anyway. But who's counting?
Someone is.
Here's how I know, because the app is keeping track of it for me. So yes, there's a coaching element to it. Every week to 2 weeks, I check in with my coach, Josh, who's great, former Canadian, by the way. But the everyday part of it is like I did a mobility workout last night. I think it took me 18 minutes. So the
That's
mobility,
nothing.
yeah, I was going to say, so 3 days a week, it's 12 to 20 minutes, depending on the mobility workout you're doing. The other 3 days are a little bit longer. Sometimes they're 45 minutes. I'm throwing a lot of weight around. I'm working up a sweat. But it's every day I'm doing something. I got to tell you, Chris, I told this to Josh, probably the single biggest thing, and you'll appreciate this, but I want the listener to understand. There's my hips are like a lot of guys my age, very tight, sore. My mobility isn't what I thought it was. And I've been doing yoga, but I do this thing with the lacrosse ball. It's called a TFL. It's what does TFL stand for against your?
That's your fascia lata.
It's the side of your hip. If you basically lay on your back and try and turn your hip external, it's the muscle that you're using. And for me, Chris, I do that every day, even on days when it's not part of the program. And I can tell you, I can't tell you the impact it's had on my lower back. Explain why.
Yeah, then you're not alone. That's by far and away the one of the most important muscles when it comes to that. And actually, a funny story. Yes, the name of it. I don't know if you're familiar with David Orr. He's one of the kind of pretty pronounced putting coaches.
Yeah, putting guy. Yeah.
Justin Rosie and all those guys. He was up here one day and he was having some back issues, and he'll never forget. He's on the table. He says, "What is that called?" And I said, "TFL. It's the tensor." He goes, "Tender effing lovin'." So whenever somebody asks about, that's what I always think of in my head. But yeah, I mean, the reason that's important is it's a hip flexor, so it helps with pulling your knees like toward your chest. But if you think about it, where it sits, I always use the analogy, like if you're sitting in a chair and you put your thumb kind of just barely inside of your hip pocket, like that front pocket, you can kind of feel it kind of right in there. You can kind of roll it if you go side to side, with your thumb. That muscle, basically, when you're walking and we sit, it's short all day. Every time we walk or we play golf, that muscle's working. And think of it as almost like getting punched, like light punches all the time, right? And so there's going to be a response where the fascia around that kind of tightens down. I always use the analogy, if you think of like it's wintertime, if you raise your arm up, your sleeve will slide down your arm. Your TFL is like your arm, the sleeve is the fascia. And there ends up being this like duct tape stickiness that gets between your sleeve and your arm. So now all of a sudden when you go to reach up, the sleeve doesn't move. There's no gliding, right? So what the lacrosse ball does is it basically, think of like ripping up the duct tape, and helps it to maintain that nice kind of slippery sliding relationship, which helps that mobility. And that's where you'll see that immediate improvement. Like you roll and immediately you can see you can move more.
But so after 4.5 months of doing it almost daily, excuse me, why has that made, well, along with the other things that we do in the program, that seems to, that and the glute med.
Yep.
Mead. That rolling that ball in those areas has taken some pressure off my lower back.
Yeah. So I think when you look at the low back, so the lumbar spine in particular, there's some kind of arch, like it's called a lordotic arch, right? Where you have that little S kind of bend in it. The tighter the front of the hips are, it exaggerates that. So it pulls you into more of that arch. And the more you go into that arch, think of it as a tug of war. The harder the front of the hips pull, the harder to counteract that the back has to pull, right? So that's where most back issues are not back issues at all. They're actually from the hips or lower leg. And it's just the back is what grabs to try to counteract whatever's going on there. So, when it comes to back issues, the number one cause of back pain in golf is exactly what you're talking about. The TFL, the glute med, the hip not being able to rotate, because when it can't rotate, that's generally a sign of those muscles being tight, which puts additional stress on the back. And then we end up with the number one issue of pain in golf.
Yeah, well, Chris, I'll let you know that the program is definitely yielding results. I met the GSL for lunch a couple weeks ago. We had a hug. This man has pecs. I never felt the man had pecs before. Now he does. He's amply bosomed now. But anyways,
I really appreciate you, focusing on that part of my body again. Thank you.
Oh, this is the part that I never mind.
It's okay.
Came in contact with.
But
There we
please
go.
continue. Please, boss.
Yes. Keep this at a higher level. So a lot of people have to move through resistance, and I think that now that we've established that it doesn't take a ton of time. I mean, 18 minutes, that kind of you can do that. But a lot of guys, well, I think people in general say, well, God, I have enough to do in my life. I got kids, I got work. How do you work this what's the best way to work this into your life, Chris, doing these
Yeah,
workouts?
yeah. I think, don't forget, travel for work. And then, also then when golf season starts, fitting in golf, right? Everybody that we work with is busy, travels, successful. Like that's a very common thread. I think, Fred, hit it on the head. Or, not Fred, sorry, Howard
It's
hit it on the
okay.
head.
I answer to Fred or Howard or G. That's
Look
fine.
at
Well, that's right
you.
behind you there. Humble and
That's all right.
Fred,
Fred.
Fred,
There.
thinking Howard, I see
Let me
Fred.
cover the Fred part.
Yeah, but what I think Howard hit it on the head when he said basically, some of the workouts can be 12 to 18 minutes, and I think when people hear workout, they inherently associate that with like going to the gym
Effort.
after, and then I got to come back from the gym, and then I got to shower. Right, it's this big arduous event of the day. And what we find is through all the research we've done is if you can get 90 minutes of work in over the course of a week, we're going to make progress.
That's
So
doable.
Howard's actually doing a little bit more than the average person needs to.
Yeah.
And I
Of
think
course he would.
I was going to say, I had no idea until Josh said, "Yeah, you're one of the few people that do it every single
yeah,
day."
it's
And I
awesome.
said, well,
Is Josh telling you to back off now?
No, but I didn't realize that was an option. I
Yeah,
found
but-
out that later, like a month 3.
Yeah.
I was like, "You mean not everyone's doing this 6 days a week?" He goes, "No, we suggest you do." But I'm like, I missed I don't know, what did I miss, Chris? 4 workouts, 5 workouts
There's
in
not
4
much
months.
red on your app, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, is that what it is? Is that what you? It's very little red.
A red
Chris,
app.
this is a guy who learned how to ride a unicycle at age 50 in what was that, a month or
A
so?
little bit. I'm a little bit obsessed. So, but you make a great point. Most people think when I say I've got 6 workouts a week, yes, 3 of them I will go to my girlfriend's apartment. She's got a full gym, but I could do most of that stuff in my house. I've got barbells. I've got resistance bands. I've got enough equipment to do probably 4 of those 6 workouts for sure in my house.
Well, I mean,
And
so that's it.
I was going to say, and I've done them on the road. I went to Mexico. I took the lacrosse ball. I did some resistance band stuff. It is very doable.
Yeah, well, I think that's the normal experience that we see with most of our golfers is they'll come in having, we have some guys that have fitness backgrounds. A lot of them have no experience whatsoever. They're just like, this stinks how my body feels. I want to feel better and I want to hit it farther.
That's right.
Right. So most of them will start with 15 minutes 6 times a week or 30 minutes 3 times a week. Like most of them are not doing more than 90 minutes in a week. But then what happens is when we get to week 2 and we retest for the first time their mobility, they're like, "Oh my God, that's way better." And then they're like, "Hey, if I did an extra 15 minutes this next 2 weeks, would it get better even quicker?" And you're like, "Well, yeah." Right. And so they're like, "Okay, well, so now they're all of a sudden they're doing, just under 2 hours instead of an hour and a half." Right. And then you start to see this snowball effect where then now all of a sudden mobility is good. That's just maintaining. So now instead of the majority being around mobility, now they're just maybe spending, 30 minutes a week on that. And they're now more so focusing on strength. And I joke, I was talking with another guy yesterday, and when he started out, he was in like the 10th or 20th percentile for strength. So like out of 100 guys, he's like the weakest 10, basically, right? And he's like, "Oh, I hated the strength." And what's funny is now all of a sudden you start to see him get into the 25th, 30th, 35th percentile for strength. All of a sudden he doesn't hate it as much. And now he's asking for a little bit more. And I think that's the same thing with golf, right? Like if you suck at chipping, you don't really want to go practice chipping if you're really good at driving the golf ball. But if you start to get a little bit better at something, then you kind of want to do it more. And I think that's a big key to a lot of the success that people are having is we start it in small doses and then kind of snowball it
I would
up.
agree.
Yeah, I think they get energy. I think when you reflected earlier about, if people weigh themselves every day, if they start to see, whoa, I dropped. I mean, that fires up. Willpower is a weird thing, but it just fires you up. It gets you kind of going. But one of the key things I wanted to ask you is, so I coach people in their golf swings and that kind of thing. And of course, with folks over 50, The most usual thing is, hey, coach, how do I regain distance? And so, we know that club head speed is a key piece of that. But so if you're addressing a core part of our audience, guys who want to hit the ball farther now that they're in their vintage years, what would you suggest?
Yeah, so that's what I think of like a pizza pie, right? And Tim, you address half of it and I address the other half. So the golf professional is going to look at technique improvements. Are there efficiency improvements that we can make? Like, do you cast the club and fall back as you come through impact? Hey, if we maybe get a forward shaft lean, we use our lower body first, maybe the club will go a little faster, right? There's technical changes you can make. You also are going to be the one who usually identifies, hey, that driver's 15 years old. Maybe some new technology will just make that ball go a little farther, right? So those are kind of like the two top pieces of the pizza pie. The other two pieces are on the physical side. And that's where it's either going to be a physical mobility limitation, meaning I use the analogy of, if we go back to the gorilla, if you have a gorilla behind, let's say you're sitting in a chair that has wheels on it, right? So I'm in like a rolling chair. And let's say I'm a foot away from the wall, right? I say, Howard, you can push me as hard as you possibly can into the wall, right? I'm probably not going to be happy with Howard, but I'm not going to need to go to the hospital, right? If instead I say, hey, Howard, Tim shows up and he's like, hey, I think this will be fun if you back up 100 feet and get a running start with Chris and then throw him in the wall.
That's so Tim.
That is Tim, right? I'm going to have to go to the hospital, right? Now, you had the same amount of force, ability, strength from a foot as you did from 100. The difference is you had more impulse. You had more time to apply that force. And so I think that's what we see with guys over 50 is as their mobility lessens, they lose, instead of 100 feet of runway, they're getting to a foot of runway. So they don't have as much time to apply the force that they can produce. And that's where mobility can really impact speed. And then there's obviously the strength and power sides too.
I want you to talk about this idea because it was something that was new to me that, like, I don't even know how to put this. When Josh was talking to me, because I swing, my driver's speed swing was somewhere in the low, like 99 to 102, 103. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But Josh said, and he made this point that, yeah, you can swing that fast, but according to your mobility and your strength on the way we measure it at Par for Success, you can swing that fast, but not without hurting yourself. Yeah. And that's why. And I think that's a real key. I'd like you to talk about that a lot of guys are, especially over 50 and 60, are trying to swing faster, but they don't realize that they're actually hurting their bodies while they're doing it.
Yeah, and I think that's, we'd work with a guy named Mark Crossfield, is a big YouTuber. So we just did a podcast the other day.
Yeah.
And he's a guy who started, he was a good player, and this is very common for a lot of guys in their 50s plus. He's like, I could get the club to move 117 miles an hour, but physically I was, predicted like 109, I was good. He's like, but I can push myself really, really fast, right?
Yeah.
So there's becomes a difference between this all-out speed of wheels falling off the cart versus what you're safe and comfortable with.
But I just want to just jump back in because for a while, like I've been doing speed training. I have speed sticks. I was doing the couple of times a week, hitting 30 drivers as hard as I could, and I was getting my numbers. Like I had a couple numbers last summer at 108, 109, but I didn't realize until I was doing the course that I'm doing damage to myself.
Yeah, you're redlining.
I'm redlining, and my golf swing, is good enough to make that happen, but my body couldn't support it. And now, I just had a test a couple of weeks ago, and my numbers have gotten pretty good. And what Josh said to me was, at least now, we've got you to a point where you can swing the swing that you have without hurting yourself. And that's kind of the point I wanted to make mostly today is we got a lot of guys listening that, if you do nothing, nothing happens. And I think what's brilliant about the course is it's measurable, it's doable, and at the very least, you'll maintain the strength you have for the season to come and hopefully cut down on the amount of injury that you're doing to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a matter of a lot of guys have a big gap, right? So you had it, Mark had it. Like it's a super common thing we see where, you can push it up to, in your case, 108, right? But you're like safe going, 98, 99. But then now all of a sudden you build up you get your mobility cleaned up. So now you have more runway. So you're not running into a wall, right? That's going to immediately decrease injury risk. You also now increase how much power you can produce safely. So now your motor and your engine gets a lot bigger. So now when you have a bigger engine and you have more runway, you can go the same, if 108, let's say, was the max, now instead of 108 being redlining, maybe now you can hit 108 in fourth gear, right? And I think that's the difference of what we're trying to do for a lot of these guys in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s is yes, more speed's cool, but safe, more speed with less injuries, really cool.
Yeah,
And
that's the point.
that's where that's why we look at top end speed, but we also look at gamer speed. And I think ultimately what we're looking for is a lot of guys will come in with a 108 in your case, there's going to end up being like an 8 to 10 mile an hour gap between what you can do and where your body's like good. And our goal is really, in that instance, I don't care about your top end. What I care about is minimizing that gap.
Yeah.
And that's the first step. And then once we get there, sure, let's level up and let's push that top end, but let's do it in a way that's sustainable for a lot of years.
Chris, I want to ask before we let you go. A lot of guys, I think, will equate strength with hitting it farther. It makes a ton of sense. But when they start to visualize or feel what's going on, I think what they're often thinking is that I have to hit it hard with my big muscles. I know you're more of a fitness guy, but you know a lot about the golf swing. So maybe just speak a little bit about what do you think that kind of relationship is between the big muscles and what we'll call the small twitch muscles and generating speed.
Yeah, so I think just visually, I think it's helpful for people to always think of a Justin Thomas versus a Brooks Koepka. Okay. So Justin Thomas doesn't have a big engine. He's not very strong. Brooks Koepka, big engine, very strong. Okay. Justin Thomas is very good at, hitting the NOS button, nitrous oxide to go as fast as he can. But the frame of his car is not that big, right? So, hence some back issues he's had recently.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And maybe Zalatoris, but do continue, sir.
Zalatoris,
Yeah.
Akshay, like all these
Yeah.
guys that are thin as rails, they
Yeah.
they have very good elasticity. So I think there's strength and there's power. Strength is how much force you can produce. Let's say you can move 100 pounds, right? So you're 100 pounds strong or 100 kilos strong, which is double, but you get
You
the
can
idea.
stay with pounds. We're old people. We
Yeah,
understand
exactly,
pounds.
exactly. It's a
I actually
metric
prefer
country, but
kilos.
we're
Yeah.
old.
Yeah,
And then
but we
let's say, I can move that 100 pounds, 10 feet in 10 seconds, but Tim can move that 10 feet in 1 second. So we have the same strength, but Tim can move that a further distance faster. He's got more power, right? And so I think that's where it's a matter of how strong you are. Think of it a math equation times how fast you can move it. So a
hmm
guy like Justin Thomas or anyone that I hear on social that's like, I've never lifted a weight and my speed's 9. Good for you. You have very fast acceleration. That doesn't mean that actually is the higher risk of injury because you're moving really, really fast, but your engine isn't really that big. And so that generally means your braking mechanisms aren't as strong versus
Mm,
somebody who's going to have, if we look at what Bryson did when he was trying to pick up tons of speed, he put on a lot of mass. He increased a lot of his strength and while also trying to increase his acceleration. And then eventually he got to the point where he got so big and strong that his acceleration started to decrease. He reached a point of diminishing return, so he stopped getting bigger. So it's a matter of optimizing those two elements for every golfer. And for every golfer, they're different. And I think that's why we're always testing.
yeah. Just briefly, I think you used a word there that might confuse some people. We're talking about acceleration, speed, and you used the word braking.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people that may be confusing. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So let's say Howard is pushing me the 100 feet in the rolling chair. If we're on ice, there's no way I'm stopping before we hit that wall, right? So even if at like 10 feet away, he's like, you know what? Chris is actually a decent guy. I don't want to I think that's a
That's
bad
right.
idea. Like I'm
Yeah,
still screwed, right?
I really like him.
Right. But so strength, I would, this isn't technical. I would say just for people's conceptuality, strength correlate or connect strength to braking. So the stronger you are, the better you are going to be stopping, right? So Howard on ice pushing me into the wall is a very elastic person with no brakes. That's going to hurt. Howard very strong on a very friction like carpet, right? Or basically where he can stop. And he gets to 10 feet and he's able to just stop. And all of a sudden, I stop going and I don't hit the wall. That means he's really strong. So the stronger that you are, the more likely you are to be able to stop. So think golf swing. We talked about the hips in the beginning coming through into impact. If you're strong enough, you're not going to run into the end range of your hip and hit bone on bone, right? And then your back hits bone, right? And then all things start. You're gonna be able to stop at a range before you hit the wall. And when people don't have the strength, they don't have the mobility, unfortunately, what happens, but they have lots of acceleration. What ends up happening is they just are running really fast repeatedly into a wall, and then they're shocked when they get hurt.
Well, there's a lot to take in. The program is called PAR Number 4 Success. If you go to parforsuccess.com/humble and Fred, you'll get a free 45-minute assessment. It's personalized. It's not a one-size-fits-all routine. I hope today we've given you all a sense of it. And as far as results, my pecs aside, I can tell you, my I thought I was in good shape. I really did.
Howard has boobs now.
I thought, yes, and they're delicious. I thought I was in good shape. I thought, pretty good shape, and I'm not overweight, and I do a lot of yoga, blah blah blah. But I didn't realize that I was, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't realize I was hurting myself, and the fact that I was always sore. I just thought that was normal. We sort of joke about the old guy's warm up is just taking your leave in the parking lot. So and by the way, I was always one of those guys that did warm-ups. All my buddies on Saturday morning, the guys that don't play tournaments, I'm on the ground stretching, I've got towels. So I was doing all of that, but I was still sore all the time. And I can tell you, Chris, I played a little golf a couple of weeks ago when I was away in Mexico, played 2 or 3 rounds, hit balls. I've been doing that indoors weekly. I hit balls yesterday for about 45 minutes. Nothing terrible, but I maybe hit 30 or 40 balls. But I just noticed last night when I was doing my mobility workout, I'm just not, and I'm not saying this because you're here, I'm just not as sore as I traditionally have been. And because I just accepted that was part of the cost of being a active player. But as you guys have explained to me, you don't have to feel that way. And I think of all the things we've talked about today, if you'd like to be pain-free, even if it's not for golf, you got grandkids, you're running around, you want to be active, it's a great program for flexibility, whether you're a tournament player or not. I would just say at least have a conversation with the guys. What do you think of that?
I think that's 100% on point. I think that's really, truly that lack of soreness or that improvement, that is a testament to literally just doing that mobility work, the TFL, whatever those areas are. And to your point, the TFL may not be the key for someone else. It may be the glute med. It may be something in the shoulder. But I think that's the beauty of the customizing it and just making it part of your routine. It's stuff like this is why I love doing what we do. And I can't thank you enough for spreading the word about the changes it's made for you. And hopefully somebody else out there listening is like, oh, you mean I don't have to hurt? That isn't normal.
Yeah, that was a big revelation for me. Listen, man, this won't be the last time we talk to you. Chris Finn, Par 4 Success. That's the number 4, success.com/humble and Fred for a 45-minute assessment. It will definitely change the way you feel about the game and the way the game feels to you. Chris, I'll talk to you soon, man.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Imagine, Tim, finding out that I apparently am one of the more obsessed guys. I had no idea. Fuck. That's so funny. You know what he's talking about when he says there's no red spots? They can look at the app and see how many times you've done the workouts. So I didn't know. I just thought, hey, if you're supposed to do them 6 days a week, I guess I'll just do them 6 days a week, every week. Yeah.
Well, folks who want to learn a little bit more about the GSL, just use your favorite search engine and put in Humble Howard and Swing Thoughts and a little profile that I wrote about.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
The GSL will come up. And one of the core things that comes up is all the people I interviewed was the word intense.
Can I share some numbers with you? And in these, and I make no, I'll just tell you.
This is not braggadocious. This is just data.
This is just data. I don't know what you. Let me preface this by saying, I'm going to ask you a question. what do you like? I never know how reliable indoor numbers are. And here's my experience, because I don't do a lot of sim golf. More the last couple of years, but not like some guys are in weekly leagues. I go once a week by myself or with a buddy to hit balls, like I did yesterday. So my experience with indoor numbers are my iron numbers tend to be a bit more. My driver numbers indoors tend to be a bit less. Has that been your experience?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think the key thing is that as a lot of our listeners will know, when you hit off a mat, there tends to be an acceleration sometimes that happens as the iron hits the mat, as opposed to it slowing down when it hits turf.
Yes.
That's a key thing. And even, everyone who's got a bit of golf experience knows that when you hit the mat, sometimes it'll bounce into the ball and you still think you've hit it well and you have not. I don't know why with the driver it appears to go slower. Maybe it's not calibrated with the same run out or something, or a tailwind, and it hasn't rained for 2 weeks.
Well, for me, my driver's swing speed is a couple of miles an hour slower than I feel like I swing it when I'm hitting it outside on a TrackMan outside. So having said what Tim said, which is, if you're hitting off of mats, especially when you're warming up to play, you're getting a lot of false positive feedback, because as Timmy says, it's basically you're not compressing it the same way. And I can see it when I'm on an indoor situation where there's TrackMan numbers. I can see it when I'm soaking you, if you're listening. You can see it on the spin rate. Like when you're hitting an iron, the spin rate's lower than it would be if you were making a very descending, compressed, move into the ground. And as you say, because the ground has resistance, the mat doesn't. It actually speeds it up. So having said all that, I normally hit I'll just take my 6-iron. My 6-iron is 170 to 175 flight. What is the word I'm like? Carry? Is the word I was
carry? Yeah, carry. Yeah.
Thank you. 170 to 175, rolling out to 180, max 185. It's pretty good for a 66-year-old.
It's damn good, sir.
Indoors, like this is yesterday, I'm hitting it closer to 200 yards. Now let's take some percentage of that, because it's as you described, it's a mat. It has different qualities. But every iron in my bag, 9-iron I hit yesterday, I hit 6-iron, I hit hybrid. Hang on, barking. I got my daughter's dog here. And then my daughter's dog, every time it barks, my dog. Anyway, all I'll say is this. In 4 months of doing this program, without swinging, it doesn't feel like I'm swinging any harder. I've definitely gained some yardage so far with my irons. I don't know why. I'm not. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm swinging that much differently. I'm just stronger in all those core places, including my core. Shoulder mobility's better. Hip mobility's better, even though my hip bugs me sometimes. And my thoracic ability, the ability to turn your upper body over a stable lower body. I just can tell you, and I'm sure I'm endorsing these guys because it's definitely worked for me.
Yeah, I love that word thoracic. It always makes me think, is he talking about dinosaurs?
No, I know.
Anyways,
it makes it seem like when you throw thoracic into a sentence, people go, "Oh, that guy's done some studying."
Oh, yes, exactly.
He knows
TFL and everything.
Oh,
I thought that was a rap group. Rap group. Who says rap group anymore?
People
That's
say
like,
rap groups.
That's like from 1980. That's like the Sugar Hill Gang and whatnot.
Hey, is TFL playing tonight?
Yeah, they're opening for. Yeah, never mind. I wanted to ask you, how is the Golf for Success thing? How is it combining with the ground force guy stuff that you did?
Yeah, really good. I'm just the ability to put more force into the ground is another reason that the ball is going further.
Yeah.
We'll talk about GL. Yeah, I've been doing that. I've been working with Marcus, who I had on the show in the fall. I've been working with him. I've done 3 online sessions.
That's great.
And I really noticed when I was in Mexico, I played 3 rounds, and I just noticed a couple things about the ball flight. I'm hitting the ball a little higher than I normally did.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, the ball's coming.
Going.
Yeah, more speed, but more speed into the ground. Hey, speaking of things that we want to endorse, we've been friends separately and together with Carl Morris, who both of us admire so much. For me going on a decade, you going on even longer, and maybe you could take a couple minutes and explain, because you've done this course, I think.
Yep.
So Carl's got an offering for people that follow him. If you don't, you should. It's called the Mind Factor. Maybe you can explain a little bit about what that is and how we can spread some good work for our listeners.
Yeah. So, Carl, he's the premier golf performance guy in Europe. It has been for going on 30 years. And when I started to get into coaching, I had a lot of good basic stuff, but in terms of facilitating and golf knowledge, but I felt that to become a better coach, I needed some structure. Like, how do you move people through, shall we say, a process? And so I checked out Carl's Mind Factor certification course. And so I did that about 11 years ago. And the interesting thing to me is that it made me a better coach for sure, but it also made me a better player. And so what I'm saying is that, whether you're a coach or you're just a very avid deep golf nerd, you should check out Carl's Mind Factor certification course. It's based on what they do is every year he does this and he films. It's a 3-day course that he does in Manchester, England. And now he's also offered some things on top of it. You get 2 one-on-one coaching sessions with Carl. That's pretty damn cool to be able to talk to Carl Morris.
I have to interrupt just quickly. This is an online certification course, not the 3-day course. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to go to Manchester, England, have at it.
Absolutely.
But you can do this online, and you also get to become part of a community of Mind Factor coaches that meets pretty regularly. So if you're interested in this, I would check it out. Check out Mind Factor. Just put it into your Google search engine, Mind Factor certification, and it'll come up. And so you want me to get right into the details of?
Well, but just want to mention, I'll give the code. So you just go to mindfactor.net, look for the online certification course, excuse me, and put in the code HumbleH. That will get you 100 pounds off the already discounted price. And as Timmy said, even if you're not interested in being a coach, it's a great way to absorb. This Carl Morris guy, he's a sweet, sweet man. He's smart. He's kind. And this course is...
and he knows what he's talking about.
He knows what he's talking about. I said smart, but he's a good guy. He's smart. And even if you're not looking to coach, it's a great way to learn to coach yourself.
Exactly.
And there's lots to it. So do you have anything else to say about that, sir?
No, that's it. I mean, if you're a deep golf nerd and a regular STD,
yes,
and you've listened to this show enough, I can tell you that the contents of this show will fascinate you. A lot of amazing stuff about how the mind works, how mindfulness works into quieting your mind and dealing with your emotions, keeping off that emotional roller coaster. You'll learn a lot of great stuff.
You were saying you get hey, by the way, you get 2 personal one-to-one mentoring sessions with Carl. I can tell you those aren't cheap. Like this, and so when you go and see the price of this, it's well worth it, and we're excited to have Carl. We're gonna, and this is available now, but we're gonna be talking about this as the next couple of months go along, and we'd like you to take advantage of it. Now, speaking of which, another since this is all Tim and Howard plugging stuff, but we're excited. We're excited to be back in business with TaylorMade.
Yes.
Very exciting. We use sound effects. That's how excited we were. We're using sound effects. Okay. We're going to be talking about TaylorMade again this year on our program. They've got the, I think it's now they're up to the QI 4 or something. I don't know.
Folks, we're just in the initial. We just got the okay. The ink is still drying on the document, so we're not quite up to speed on the new gear yet.
This is our first show of the new year. We're new to this. This is a new.
Yeah, we're rusty. We're rusty,
baby. QI. What's it called? You know what's it called? QI something.
Did Scotty Scheffler swing it in winning his last event? Of course he did.
Of course he does.
Yes. And Rory in Dubai. Was it Dubai?
He didn't win it, though, did he? Taylor made new driver.
Rory didn't win. No, I think Rory finished second.
Yeah.
But it wasn't due to the equipment.
The QI4D, it's called.
Whoa.
The QI4D. Hey, did you see this thing? That and it was very Tiger-esque after Scheffler won his 20th tournament just a couple days ago. And they showed the, and I remember this from Tiger Times. That's what I call it, Tiger Times. They showed the difference. Let me make sure I get this right. So Scotty's official world golf ranking number, there's a factor, there's a number, and that number between the gulf between Scotty Scheffler and second place Rory McIlroy is the same difference between Rory McIlroy and the 670th ranked player in the world.
Yipes.
So there's a bigger or similar. So it's like the lead between Scheffler and McIlroy is the same lead that McIlroy has between himself and the dude that's ranked 675. It's crazy.
That is nutty. Yeah. Well, there you go. I mean, there he won his what was that? His 20th PGA Tour win last weekend, and 27 under par. I know everyone knows this, and 66. Like, my goodness, this guy is just on a freaking roll.
Yeah, he's pretty good at golf. You know, and that official world golf thing, the reason that he gets points, even like the way those points work, is the more highly ranked players you have in a tournament. This is why Tiger was number one for 600 weeks, because the way it works is the more highly ranked players in the event, the more ranking points are available. So every time Tiger teed up, the ranking points were weighted because he was in the field.
Oh, exactly.
So that's what it is with Scotty. Even when Scheffler doesn't win, which isn't, he wins at an incredible rate, but his top 10s and his top 20s. So if he gets an 8th place finish, because he's in the field, that field ranking goes up. So it's pretty crazy. It's like I say, it's very Tiger-esque in terms of his dominance right now.
Yeah, well, I talked a lot of math in the last bit. This Swing Thoughts gets analytical.
Yeah, I heard somebody say...
Swing Thoughts Moneyball.
Yeah, it's funny. I heard somebody say that about Scheffler. The reason that he's not as popular as Tiger or whatever, because, they had a picture of Tiger who looks like ripped, and he's all this sort of athletic, cool-looking dude. And they said Scheffler looks like, I can't remember, the guy that delivers your new fridge or some shit.
Yeah, exactly.
He just looks like a dude that, showed up with your new air conditioner or something.
Yeah. He looks a little soft, but that's fine. No, he's amazing. I mean, what would have been like to been like? How was that Blades Brown kid who played with him?
Oh,
the kid just out of high school. Yeah, Blades Brown. I mean, that's a golf name on par, if you will, with the kid I used to coach at the University of Guelph, Nick Stryker. Blades Brown and Nick Stryker.
Yeah, that could be good. Yeah. Then there's a Blades Brown. There's Adam Schenk. Adam Schenk's a pro golfer. By the way, I was just reading the description of the 2026 TaylorMade QI4D driver. Shall I read part of it to you?
Yeah, go for it. We need to get up to speed on this. Yes.
Here's how immature I am. Okay.
As if we had to remind everyone.
Okay, well, let me just read part of it. It goes, maximum aerodynamic, redesigned carbon face, blah, blah, blah. And then it says, featuring a darker matte aesthetic with a lipstick rim on the back. And who doesn't like that? Listen, who amongst us does not want a lipstick rim on the
Nick,
back?
we're having fun here. Come on, we're just so grateful
Nick
you're
will
back
love
on
this.
board. Yeah,
Nick will
he
love
will. Yeah.
this. I'm going to make sure I get the lipstick rim. Anyhow, let's, in our final moments of our very first show, I wanted to talk to you about something and get your thoughts.
I'm listening.
And take your time. What do you feel, or how does this line or align with your coaching philosophy? I'm not talking about swing now. I'm talking about just the way you look at the game. And I'm asking several of my dear friends, you, Kent, my buddy Chucky Fitz, who just got married.
Oh, wow. Congrats.
I told you I was his officiant.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
My
That was a
officiant.
while ago, right?
Now, a couple months ago. It was cool.
Yeah.
So I'm asking people that I respect, and you're one of them. I want you to talk a little bit about, especially now it's January, guys, and then starting to think about golf fitness and maybe getting to play. What are your thoughts around the idea of goal setting?
I think it's really good to have goals. It gives you direction, something to aim for. But I think that goals, if you're thinking about them all the time, I think they actually can hurt you because they put you on an emotional roller coaster. Because think about a goal, it's all about essentially you're desiring an outcome. So your focus is on results. And so, I mean, everyone has things that they want to do. They want to win, say, a flight in their club C, lower your index, whatever. So it's good to have those goals. Like I say, they produce sort of the energy that drives you. But what I think is way more important is intention, because intention is about action. So the goals provide the what, intentions provide the how. And so when you have intentions, that's basically about taking action. So rather than thinking, if you're in a round of golf, let's say you want to shoot, you want to, break 80, like a lot of our STDs could relate to that. All through the round, if you're thinking about, okay, I'm 3 over now, and then when I'm 5 over, you're riding an emotional roller coaster because you're focused on the results, which we've talked many times on this podcast, you don't control. You don't control where the ball goes in the hole or your swing. So rather than being focused on the result, if you focus on something like an intention, that's more process oriented and that's more in your control. So it could be something like, today I'm going to feel the club head as I swing, or it could be I'm going to go through my pre-shot routine, being very mindful of it. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to accept any result, whatever the intention is. You have complete control over that. So by focusing on the actions you're going to take, I think that leads you to your goals.
Yeah, I was going to say that the first part of that, and all of it's good, but the initial takeaway for me was it's the not focusing on the results so much as focusing on process, focusing on intentions, things that you can control.
The things that you can do on a daily basis, yeah.
And I asked this
daily, but
things that you can control, whether it's daily or not, and your intentions for a round of golf, as opposed to, today I want to break 90, or today I want to, I mean, it's hard for golfers because of this. I was going to say duality, but it's not just duality. It's all the multiverse of our minds as golfers. So if I asked you, do you think I should set? Because I thought of this when I was having breakfast with Kent a couple of weeks ago. I asked him this question, and he also had a similar answer to you. But I wondered, should I not write down all my goals for the 2026 tournament season? Or is that not what some people do? And if I do that, am I setting myself up for failure?
No, absolutely not. Writing things down is really important, because what happens is you take sort of these general ideas, these emotions you have, and they're sort of they just ping around our brains. But if you put it into language, now you've got something to work with. There's more structure. There's more chance that you can manifest itself when you put it down in concrete language. Now, I think what you're talking about there, uh, if I get you right, is that if you write it down and that these are your goals and you don't achieve them, are you at risk of feeling failure? Is that what you're getting at?
Well, and not only, I don't mind, the risking failure isn't the issue for me. I don't mind that. It's the, am I putting, like, I'll give you, obviously, I want to, I want to qualify for the Ontario Senior Am and the Canadian Senior Am this year. I want to. It's been 3 years since I have, and I just want that. Among the many other things I'd like to do in golf this year, those are two of them. My question to you, and I would ask this again, if the listeners have any thoughts about this, great. If I set that as a goal and write it down, and I have this qualifier on this date, am I putting too much pressure? Because I know, oh, that's one of my goals, and it's coming up in the end of May. I've got a qualifier at, someplace. Is it too much pressure, or is it just part of, like working to? If I put it as a goal, isn't there some merit in working toward a goal?
Oh, definitely the latter, for sure. Some people don't set goals, and they don't. Some people have a really hard time with the idea of failure. They really do, and that's a tough one. I mean, in so many parts of our lives, we have to overcome our resistance. But if we don't plot where the hell we want to go, as the cliche goes, we might end someplace else. So I think that it makes a ton of sense to set some goals. What's my North Star for this month, this week, 6 months, this year? So it's really good to have those, but so set those, but focus on what you're going to do more on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
To get ready for those moments, yeah.
Yeah, because that's all you can do. You hear elite athletes all the time talk about process. That's what we're talking about, because it's I remember years ago, I forget who the goalie was for the Maple Leafs. Oh my God. Talk about sad.
Worsley?
No, no, I forget his name. Anyways,
was it Rogie Vachon, or was he in Montreal?
No, Montreal. There you go. So this goalie had not won a game. I think going back to the previous season, and it's like November, and he finally wins a game. And so the guy interviewing him on Hockey Night in Canada going like, how does this push you forward? I mean, they're all looking for the media, as the media does, and we're media too, but they're looking for the story, that, the fireworks, the slow motion, all that. So how does this fire you up? And he just said, I'm going to remain focused on my process, which is doing his drills in practice, doing his fitness, just taking care of himself on a daily, weekly basis. That's
got it.
If you do that stuff, if you follow your process, you make it more likely you're going to focus on your goals. But by focusing on goals, it becomes more of a pass-fail.
Well, that's all. And again, sort of, Kent had a similar response. And I just mentioned it to Fitz the other day, and when he called me on the way to someplace. I said, hey, I want to talk to you about this thing. And maybe maybe we'll get Charlie on to maybe have a conversation about it. But I think for a lot of people in January, February, the golf season's coming up. And as we've said here many times, everyone's interested in getting better. Committed looks a lot different. And that's
right.
Fine. And I'm obviously committed, should be committed somewhere. I'm obviously committed, but I want to make sure that I go about this so that I'm not setting myself up, that it's too important to me. And I take what you say to heart there, that if I can already see that if I can set up a goal-setting system where I include the process part of it, so that I have a qualifier coming up the first week of June, then I make sure that I'm still doing my fitness, my mobility. I make sure I go there for a practice round. I make sure I've got everything that I can to give myself the best chance of success, so that as you just said, the pass-fail, the win-lose part, so I don't qualify, but at least I'll know that I achieved my goal, my process goals. At least I achieved those to give myself the best outcome, or best chance of an outcome.
And you have, like I said, you have control over the process, the little things that you need to do. And those give you energy. We talked about it with Chris earlier. When you start just ticking these little boxes, you get a win. It gives you energy. It gives you moving forward. It's just, there was a great, back in, during COVID, I was doing a lot of research into habit change and what are the things that keep us going. And there was a great story. I forget which book it was I was reading, but it was about the British cycling team in the Summer Olympics always underperforming. And they always had big, hairy, audacious goals. You hear about those all the time. What they decided to do was just make small incremental changes just in a week, a month, and they end up, then the next Olympics end up dominating it. But if you just do those small things, you may not reach your goals. You may not, win the Club C or qualify for the Ontario Senior as you want to, but I guarantee you, you will learn so much more about yourself and see what you're actually capable of, and see more possibility. And golf is a great portal because it's like a laboratory. We can go in and we can just mess around with such an interesting game, but we may not reach our goals of getting a college scholarship, breaking 90, 80, whatever, but we learn a ton.
Well, let's leave it there. I appreciate your answer, and I just take it.
And to make this into a shameless promotion, I actually wrote a blog that I posted last week called "Make It Your Intention to Play with Intention This Season."
There you go.
Well, it's very topical. It's January and whatnot, so check it out on my Substack.
Check out Chris Finn at parforsuccess.com/humbleandfred. I'll tell you what else he's good at, Chris. He's good at analogies. He should have analogies for success.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Moldy?
Dude, if you go back, Moldy Howard, if you go back and listen to that segment we did with him, that was like the gorilla, the monkey, the chair, the ice, the moldy bread. There's a lot going on.
We'll get our new producer. We get our new producer, Nick, right on that one.
Absolutely. We got a producer now. Who would have thought after 10 years we should get somebody to help us? Don't forget mindfactor.net. Go check that out. And thanks again to TaylorMade for jumping back on board. We'll be talking about their new driver. It's called the QI4D. QI4D. Tim O'Connor, o'connorgolf.ca. And, of course, this program is produced by the Humble and Fred Radio Network, or podcast network, whatever we call it these days. What else
LLC.
do we do? Yeah. All right. Well, listen, that was fun.
Yeah. We'll be back in a couple weeks.
Yeah, we're going to, that's right. We're in the off-season mode here.
Yeah.
We'll see you in February, everyone. And take care.
Get a shiver in the dark, it's raining